tonight will last in the long run.
Now, I've lived in D.C. too long to be that optimistic, but, I hope so. I can hope so.
Tonight's game has raised more than $1 million for charity. Kathleen?
Thanks, Melanie. And the tickets are sold out. House GOP Whip Steve Scalise remains in critical condition after a third surgery for his gunshot wound. Another victim also struggling to recover.
Former Capitol Hill staffer and chief of relations at Tyson's Foods, Matt Micah, is in very serious condition today. We hear from his family that he suffered multiple gunshot wounds, including one to the chest. He remains in critical but stable condition at George Washington University Hospital, where he is set to undergo more surgery tomorrow.
Fox's Doug McElway. Golden State Warriors celebrated their NBA championship with a parade in Oakland.
It means the world to me to win the championship for you guys, and hopefully we keep it going, but we're going to enjoy this one.
Forward Kevin Durant. The Warriors defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games. Givebacks on Wall Street, the Dow dropping 14 points, S&P losing 5, NASDAQ down 29. Fox News, fair and balanced.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a Select Quote agent with a true story that could save you hundreds of dollars a year. A woman named Linda just called. Her husband, Ray, has a $300,000 group life insurance policy, but is changing jobs and can't take it with him. Well, I impartially shopped the highly rated term life insurance companies we represent and found Ray, who is 41 and takes medication to control his cholesterol, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $26 a month. That's almost twice the coverage for less than half of what he had paid. If SelectQuote hasn't shopped for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 1-800-224-5353. That's 1-800-224-5353. 1-800-224-5353. Or go to SelectQuote.com. We shop, you save. Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your price can vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants, the hosts, the guests, and the callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of Southern Stone Communications, WNDB Radio, its employees, and friends. Comments regarding WNDB's programming can be addressed to D. Lang at DaytonaRadio.com.
Live from Daytona Beach, Florida, bringing a voice to America's forgotten working class, speaking the truth for the America that Washington left behind, making America great again, 1 hour at a time. This is Trump Talk Live, where we the people have the right voice, presented by the Republican Party of Volusia County. Here now are your hosts for this episode, Vic Baker and Joe Fieldus.
Greetings, fellow American Patriot Trumpubblicans, and welcome to the June 15th Field of Nightmares episode of Trump Talk Live, the home of fearless truth-telling about President Donald Trump and his mission to make America great again. We're also coming to you live tonight for the first time on YouTube Live by the newly inaugurated Great Again Cam. Now to the horrifying events of June 14th. It's been one place where Republicans and Democrats have actually gotten along for more than a century. Since 1909, they've worked out their differences with America's pastime at a ball field in Virginia. A game of bipartisan baseball to raise money for charity. It's underway right now, as a matter of fact. But they were practicing yesterday. Nothing seems to be safe in America anymore. We've been verbally and visually assaulted for months by Democrats, mediacrats, Hollywood hypocrites, anarchists, and lunatic lefty fascists, all hell-bent on the destruction of our duly elected President Donald Trump. They're delusional. The American culture is already coarsened through generations of unhinged values, relative morality, rejection of faith, unless it's radical Islam, gender blender feminazism, and social media depravity. Now it's come to this. The so-called birthplace of the free speech movement, UC Berkeley, has assassinated free speech, along with dozens of other lefty lunatic fringe campuses who want safe zones from any public discourse that disagrees. Madonna dreams of blowing up the White House. Jim Carrey fantasizes about racking our president with a golf club. Snoop Dogg spews out a mock assassination of President Trump. Kathy Griffin emulates ISIS by holding up what appears to be the bloody decapitated head of our 45th president. And folks, not even the revered Bard of Avon is spared this degradation. Julius Caesar becomes Donald Trump, targeted for a mass stabbing during New York's Shakespeare in the Park. A2 American Express, New York Times, CNN. Friends, I come to praise President Trump, not to bury him. The vulgar, vitriolic venom virtually seethes from their pores. They don't argue their side with logic or facts. No, it's all about their feelings. They're suffering nervous breakdowns. They're losing their grip on reality. They've forgotten anything they might have learned about the genius of our founding fathers in crafting a rational way to pick our presidents. So now the venom has spilled into hateful vulgarity, from hateful vulgarity into bloody violence. Yesterday's field of nightmares was enough to chasten even the likes of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck the Schemer, and Comrade Bernie. But we fear not for long. Now, as we speak, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise lies in critical condition, shot by a Bernie fanatic bent on killing Republican leaders en masse at a ballpark in Alexandria. Trump praises the heroes who prevented a full-on massacre of democracy and offers words of calm, unity, and purpose. By contrast, opportunistic Democrats screech gun control, as if that would somehow stem the unbridled hatred. Democrats, now that you've taken a pause, ever so brief, to see your adversaries as human beings, let me give you a message. We need lunatic control, not gun control. Take away the guns and you disarm the targets. That won't stop lunatics bent on mayhem. They'll just find another tool of death. Make no mistake about it, Trumpublicans. This is a war for the heart and soul of the American ideal itself. We cannot back away. We cannot be silent. We cannot be faint of heart. This is far from over. Ironically, all this happened on Flag Day, the holiday we set aside to honor the values we hold dear in Old Glory. It was also the 71st birthday of our president, who got an unwelcome gift from the Washington Post in the form of a blaring headline filled with leaked information that Mueller is going after the commander-in-chief for possible obstruction of justice. Well, I ask, what justice? What crime? We've seen no evidence so far of any Russian collusion with Trump. Not at all. Not a shred. Do you think we wouldn't know by now if the Democrats had it? We've seen a stinking mountain of evidence that the corrupt corporate media mob, the mediocrats led by New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, are one big propaganda machine, determined to take Trump down before he pulls the plug on the D.C. swamp and sends those slithering swamp dwellers circling down the drain. Tonight, we want to welcome Citizens for Trump, a national organization with millions of followers nationwide. If you're listening to us from anywhere in the USA, call us toll-free at 1-800-927-0033. Talk to our YouTube live feed also through Google Chat. I'm Vic Baker, hosting Trump Talk Live tonight with fellow Trumpublican Joe Fieldes, filling in for Volusia County Republican Chairman Tony Ledbetter. Joe, take it away.
Good evening, Vic. Good evening, friends. Former presidential candidate and longtime Washington, D.C. insider Pat Buchanan wrote an essay on Monday that was titled, "Are We Nearing Civil War?" In this piece, he said, quote, that the objective of this city is to bring Trump down via a deep state and media coup is no secret. Few deny it. Thus far, it's a nonviolent struggle, although street clashes between pro and anti-Trump forces are increasingly marked by fistfights and brawls. Police are having difficulty keeping people apart. A few have been arrested carrying concealed weapons, end quote. So to Pat Buchanan and to me, and I'm sure to many of us, this terrible shooting was only a matter of when and where. Yesterday, there was a piece written by an old school newsman named Michael Goodwin of the New York Post. It captures this moment in time and its larger meaning. Here's an excerpt of what he said. Quote, "It was heartening to see members of Congress from both parties echo calls for unity following Wednesday's attempted massacre. Putting aside their habitual rancor, Democrats and Republicans joined together to emphasize that violence has no place in our politics. But let's admit the ugly truth. There is nothing bipartisan about the peculiar hate gripping significant slices of America. Breaking a major social taboo, elements of the left have openly put a target on a sitting president, and too many mainstream Democrats have been silent. Think Kathy Griffin's severed head. Think Madonna telling a rally she thinks about blowing up the White House. Think Shakespeare in the Park using a Trump stand-in for Julius Caesar. Did a single leading Democrat denounce any of these outrages as dangerous incitement? How about celebrated cultural figures or religious leaders or historians? Did any blow the whistle and say, this is a line we do not cross because we know that way lies madness? Where's the left-wing media? So eager to lecture Americans about how they should feel and what they should believe about every aspect of daily life, yet they don't have the moral courage to call out their own cultural warriors when they go off the rails. Indeed, the collapse of media standards when it comes to covering Trump is, I believe, a significant contributor to the bitter and cultural schisms roiling the nation. No political figure in modern times has taken such a vicious pounding from establishment organizations, and their bias will inevitably serve as a license for some people to act. And the hatred for Trump doesn't stop with him. It often extends to his supporters in a trickle-down spasm of violence. And it was not happenstance that yesterday's attacker was a Bernie Sanders supporter who went gunning for Republican members of Congress. Conservatives invited to speak on college campuses are so routinely greeted with violent protests that it's no longer a big news story. Nothing could be less classically liberal than silence by intimidation. Yet many faculty and college administrators wink and nod as if blocking someone else's free speech is a new form of free speech. To be clear, the animal who pulled the trigger is solely responsible for his actions. A recent post on his Facebook page reads, "It's time to destroy Trump and company." Sadly, there's nothing unusual about those words. They are actually quite common these days. Tragically, it's becoming normal. Numbered by repetition, we gradually become to accept the unacceptable. And now, the first shot has been fired. Let's pray it is the last and that America comes to its senses before it's too late. Michael Goodwin is right. We must pray for our country, because if we remain a house divided against itself, we will not survive as free people.
Well, we heard those words from Lincoln many years ago. We didn't. We weren't here for it, but they ring in history. And we go to the next. That's just a sample of a nightmarish scene that unfolded around a little after 7 o'clock yesterday morning in Alexandria, Virginia, when members of the U.S. Congress were targeted just because they were Republicans. We'll have a little while later in the show. Ron DeSantis, our congressman, was the one that this gunman went up to ask who was on the field and ask if they were Republicans before this happened. Of course, he was oblivious. He didn't know who this guy was or what he was up to at the time. President Trump, hailed the heroism of the people that prevented this from becoming an even larger tragedy.
Many lives would have been lost if not for the heroic actions of the two Capitol Police officers who took down the gunman despite sustaining gunshot wounds during a very, very brutal assault. Melania and I are grateful for their heroism and praying for the swift recovery of all victims.
That's our president. By contrast, we go to Terry McAuliffe, the governor of Virginia. And what's he want to talk about? He wants to talk about gun control.
I think we need to do more to protect all of our citizens. I have long advocated This is not what today is about, but there are too many guns on the street. We lose 93 million Americans a day to gun violence. I mean, I've long talked about this.
We've always known that Democrats are math challenged. If we lost 93 million Americans a day, we'd be out of them in 3 days. So that's the kind of math that's being used by Governor McAuliffe. And instead of speaking about unity as President Trump has and binding the nation together and getting a common cause with each other and trying to find common purpose, he's out there playing the same old Democrat talking points. It's shameful. We're going to be back in a moment with a big event coming up in Atlanta this weekend that you need to know about, and the organizer of the event will be on the phone with us when we return.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. Stay tuned as we peel away those layers of liberal hypocrisy right here on Trump Talk Live, where the deplorables are ignored no more.
Feeling stuck in a state of compensation stagnation? You know, another year with no raise. Then let State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand help you get to a better state with a discount double check that can stretch your hard-earned dollars a little farther. Sonia will go through your car insurance to make sure you're getting all the discounts you deserve. Discounts that could add up to 40% and put a few hundred extra dollars in your pocket. Sound good? Then get your budget to a better state by calling State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand today. Discounts may vary state to state.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. For 2 decades, he's reminded NASCAR fans what we love most about our sport. It's time we returned the favor. On Saturday, July 1st, be part of a history-making night as we say thank you and celebrate the legacy of Dale Earnhardt Jr. in his final race at the World Center of Racing. The Coke Zero 400, powered by Coca-Cola, Independence Day weekend at Daytona International Speedway. Guarantee your seats at 1-800-PIT-SHOP or DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Welcome back, fellow Trumpublicans. We have on the phone with us Debbie DULY, who is organizing a big protest in Atlanta this weekend. Debbie, welcome to Trump Talk Live.
Well, it is a pleasure to be on your show. How are you guys doing?
We're loving life, except for some of the messes the Democrats have made for us.
I know. Isn't that ridiculous? I have never seen the rhetoric that I'm seeing now from the mainstream. I mean, the mainstream progressive side of the Democrat Party. I mean, it is ridiculous. What if the Tea Party in 2009 and 2010 had been violent at our rallies? What if we had riots? We destroyed property. We attacked people. We said the things that we're hearing from the mainstream people in the Democrat Party today. That is ridiculous. We are fed up with the fake news, with the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, and we're going to hold a protest at CNN Center in Atlanta Saturday from 11 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. It's at 190 Marietta Street Northwest. It's at CNN Center, and I've had people concerned because of the shooting yesterday say, will we be safe? Well, let's put it like this. Georgia is an open carry state. And all of these anarchists would be complete and total fools to try to start something at a rally when most, a good many of the people will be carrying guns.
It's good for you to point that out, Debbie. It's good. Well, we have shared this information on our Volusia County Republican Facebook page, which has a pretty good following. And of course, we wanted to share it with our listeners tonight and wanted you to tell us about your effort to get some attention to this. I suspect that CNN might notice that you're there. Whether or not they'll ever put any of it on the air is another question entirely.
Well, I think we'll have media there. They will be there to cover it. I appreciate what you guys are doing. It's time for Trump supporters to get off the couch. Let's take action. Let's show we have passion to defend our president, and we're not going to put up with fake news, and we're going to hold fake news accountable, like CNN.
God bless you, Debbie, and thank you for all that you're doing. And we appreciate you calling in to share the event with us. And we encourage our listeners and now viewers to plan on getting a carpool together and spending a couple tanks of gas to get into Atlanta this weekend.
That would be great. And if you go to our website, which is mainstreetpatriots.us, mainstreetpatriots with a S.us, we even have a list of fake news that CNN is responsible for.
That would be
And
very
I
informative.
appreciate what you guys.
Yeah.
Probably a long list.
We'll try to find that for our folks, and we'll put a link on our Facebook page for you, Debbie.
Thank you. You have a good night.
Thank you for calling Trump Talk Live. Debbie DULY, organizer of the fake news protest at CNN headquarters on Marietta Street in Atlanta this Saturday starting 11 o'clock in the morning. So get your carpools together, folks, and plan on heading out. I would pack if I were you, too. Roger Stone was in Lake Mary last Friday. I attended a reception, a book signing where he signed his book, The Making of the President 2016, and he made remarks to the crowd about what we're in for with this fight with the lunatic fringe and the completely unhinged Democrats and left-wingers that are coming after Donald Trump. And here's what he had to say in Cut 7.
We are in a fight. I urge you not to believe that because Mr. Comey was so ineffective yesterday, and because, in my opinion, he did not prove his case in terms of obstruction, there was no effort by obstruction. First of all, the President of the United States has the absolute authority to order him to drop the investigation, which he did not do. I think he did tell him to wrap it up, and I think he did express sympathy for General Flynn. That's called loyalty, because General Flynn hasn't done anything wrong that we know of, not legally. So this is, in my opinion, this is the deep state, this is the two-party duopoly, this is the political establishment seeking a basis on which to remove our president. And we are not going to let that happen, not in a million years.
Thank you, Roger Stone. And you have a quote from a senator
Vic,
who served a few years ago.
Yeah. Marcus Cicero, a Roman senator in the time of Julius Caesar, has had some insight into deep state treason in his time. And this is what he said. A nation can survive its fools and even ambitious fools, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and carries his banner openly. But the traitor moves amongst those within the gate freely, his sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. He rots the soul of a nation. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. Does this sound familiar?
It sure does. In the New York Times, we could put him in the ranks, the traitorous ranks, the treasonous ranks. The New York Times, apparently, according to what we have in front of us here, may have tipped off this shooter to GOP practice field around the time that he moved to the area, and he'd been more or less homeless. This fellow was scouting for somebody to shoot. How do we know that? Well, you know, Ron DeSantis, our congressman, was one of the people who was practicing for this baseball game with his friend Jeff Duncan, another congressman, and they were leaving to go back to the Capitol Hill to get their day underway, because they do these practices first crack of dawn so that they can get some batting practice before they get back on the hill. And he's about to leave. This guy comes up to him. He eventually determined by the description that he saw of the killer, not the would-be killer, I would say, it was Hodgkinson, the man who is widely believed to have fired all these shots. Here's what DeSantis said about what the man said approaching him in Alexandria.
Well, look, I think the most important thing was that Comey told him on 3 separate occasions.
Alexandria is what we need. Alexandria, cut 1.
Up to us that was asking whether there was Republicans or Democrats out there, and it was just a little odd. And then he kind of walked towards the area where all this happened. So we've told the police that.
Was he carrying anything?
He was not carrying anything at the time, but from where the shots were, I would think that that would have probably been staged because there was no one that was obviously walking around with a rifle at the time. But it was just a little odd that he kind of really, walked up to us to ask.
And that was Ron DeSantis' encounter with him. Now his friend, fellow Congressman Jeff Duncan, had this account.
I was there at baseball practice this morning. I actually left right before the shooting happened and had an interaction with who I believe was the shooter based on the profile that I saw on TV. I've given a statement to the Alexandria Police Department this morning. After I heard about the shooting, they asked me to come down there because I did have an interaction with someone in the parking lot who asked me if the team practicing was a Democrat or Republican team. I told him they were Republicans. He said, "Okay, thanks," turned around. I got in the car and left, find out that my Republican colleagues were targeted.
That's pretty unnerving for the members of Congress. Now how do you put security guards on 535 different people? It's really unwieldy. Now they're start talking about boosting their own security by starting to learn weapons and carry weapons of their own. So that may be what happens there. And
there was a time in our country when our lawmakers and Washington was not exactly the most safest place to be, and a lot of them carried, most of them carried, and it was open carry in those days.
Yeah, there was a time somebody tried to kill out Andrew Jackson on the steps of the Capitol, and he wound up, I think, killing him instead. The president.
This idea that we're just sitting ducks. Washington D.C. and none of our cities is like walking around Disneyland. We have to get right about this.
That's right, and we have evidence, ever so brief evidence, that there was bipartisan unity on Capitol Hill yesterday. Let's hear from Speaker Ryan.
We are all horrified by this dreadful attack on our friends and on our colleagues and those who serve and protect this Capitol. We are all praying for those who are attacked and for their families. Steve Scalise, Zachary Barth, Matt Micah, Special Agent David Bailey, Special Agent Crystal Griner. We are all giving our thoughts to those currently being treated for their injuries at this moment. And we are united. We are united in our shock. We are united in our anguish. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
To my colleagues, you're going to hear me say something you've never heard me say before. I identify myself with the remarks of the Speaker. They're beautiful remarks, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. For the sentiments that they represent, thank you so much.
That was ever so brief. Nancy Pelosi went back to slamming Republicans today. But in any case, that's what we heard yesterday. Bernie Sanders was sickened by when he learned that the gunman turned out to be a Bernie guy, a Bernie, hard and fast Bernie, not a right-wing Republican, not a Tea Partier, but a Bernie guy. And of course, when that happens, the Democrats say, "Oh well, he's crazy, so we can't take credit for this guy." So if it were a Republican, they'd be all over it. We fed the beast. As the New York, we'll say briefly, the New York Times is trying to blame Sarah Palin for this somehow. I don't know how. Let's not even go there.
Well, let me just tell you briefly, briefly. In 2011, Sarah Palin talking about seats that were available, she put bullseyes on a campaign map. It was a mailer. Very few people saw it. The shooter was an apolitical nutbag. And it was after the shooting that the media made it out like she they wanted her arrested for incitement. They made a huge deal out of it. It is nothing compared to what we've seen lately. But the New York Times saw fit to make this tie-in yesterday in their editorial page, and it's absurd and it's more fake news.
Well, they'll bend the facts into pretzels to try to get a point across that doesn't have any bearing with reality. We see the clock is catching up. We'll be back in just a moment with more Trump Talk Live. Stay with us.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. Stay tuned for more Trump Talk Live, speaking for the America the DC elites forgot.
Hi, I'm Dr. Carl Rick Lentz, a board-certified plastic surgeon practicing in the Daytona Beach area for over 30 years.
I'm Dr. Ashley Lentz, also a board-certified plastic surgeon, and I've joined our practice after being a professor of plastic surgery at University of Florida. Summer is right around the corner, and we all want to look our personal best. Now's the time to prepare. Along with healthy eating and an exercise, you might be a candidate for a mommy makeover. This might include liposuction, a drainless tummy tuck, and breast surgery, or maybe a breast lift with or without implants. Maybe you need a breast reduction with a small lift. The goal is for you to have that sculptured shape with a waist that you haven't had since before children, or maybe you never even had it. We have a wealth of experience with all of these procedures.
Perhaps surgery is not for you. You may be a candidate for Cool Sculpting, which removes fat without surgery. We are the only practice in this area with the revolutionary Cool Sculpt. Give us a call at Lentz Plastic Surgery, 386-252-8051, and schedule a consultation.
We look forward to meeting you.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Well, American Express. American Express has refused to pull its funding for the New York City Shakespeare in the Park production that is presenting a version of Julius Shakespeare that makes it appear as though modern-day senators are stabbing Donald Trump to death. Now, William Shakespeare wrote this thing, 400 years ago, whatever it was, and it was a historical play about Julius Caesar, and they're trying to draw the modern parallel to suggest that maybe this is going to happen to our American president. Well, the New York and Loopy Left are absolutely delighted at this play. They think it's just very great artistic presentation. All it is incitement to violence. Now, you can do it in the name of our folks, but it's terribly in bad taste. So I'm just telling you, CNN is still sponsoring, the New York Times is still sponsoring, and American Express. Delta Airlines withdrew, and then Bank of America withdrew. So you can make your own judgments on it.
CNN just called it a masterpiece. CNN host Fareed Zakaria, which parent company is seen as Time Warner, folks. They support the play, and Fareed went on to say, if you're in New York City, go see Julius Caesar free in Central Park, brilliantly interpreted for the Trump era, a masterpiece, he tweeted at the end of May.
Let's move on. But just before we move on, Ivanka had a few things to say in an interview about the slings and arrows her family have suffered at the hands of the mediocrats and the loony left. And here's cut one.
It is hard, and there's a level of viciousness that I was not expecting. I was not expecting the intensity of this experience, but this isn't supposed to be easy. My father and this administration intends to be transformative, and we want to do big, bold things, and we're looking to change the status quo. So I didn't expect it to be easy. I think some of the distractions and some of the ferocity was, I was a little blindsided by on a personal level. But for me, I'm trying to keep my head down, not listen to the noise, and just work really hard to make a positive impact in the lives of many people.
There is some encouraging polling out there. In spite of all this, with all the headwinds our president has encountered, Joe, you have some numbers from Rasmussen.
Yes, today. Rasmussen today has a approval rating for President Trump of 47%, which is...
That's incredible considering all the...
Yeah, you're pounded on for 6 months. And these are... Rasmussen does a good poll. They do likely voters. They don't do some of these slanted polls.
Yeah.
Now, here's some other interesting things. 54% of voters think that Congress should investigate whether Loretta Lynch, President Obama's Attorney General, sought to influence the FBI's probe of Hillary Clinton's email.
If there's an obstruction of justice investigation, there's where it should be going.
Now, it gets better. 66% of GOP voters this time,
yes,
say that Comey should be prosecuted for leaking to the media.
Yes, and of course, let's face it, folks. Comey was not a leaking virgin when he did it after his firing. He was well experienced in the craft of leaking. because he knew exactly how to do it and exactly how to funnel it, and he had a purpose in doing it. So that tells me not his first day at the leaking rodeo, folks. So
And here's one that kind of amazes me a little bit because no one even uses this word anymore. But 53% of the voters, likely voters, say that media leaks are an act of treason.
Well, they can be. They definitely can be. And Jeff Sessions, we'll get to him in a moment, talking about what is likely to happen to these leakers. A special counsel is investigating Trump for possible obstruction of justice, officials say, according to the Washington Post, that delivered that load of crap onto the front page for Trump's birthday yesterday. And of course, once again, they're citing sources. And as they cited sources when they said there was collusion with the Russians and all these other things that have proven to be completely false. And the Washington Post never gets around to apologizing on the front page the way that they.
Well, you know, their new way to keep the fire lit, because collusion fell apart after the Comey testimony. In fact, you know how it fell apart?
Yeah.
CNN and Chris Matthews
on MSNBC.
Yeah, right. Said, and when Chris says it, you know that the liberals have given up.
He's the voice
he
of the
says
liberals,
that collusion is blown up. It's gone away based on Comey's testimony.
Yeah, Trump said the obstruction of justice probe that they're talking about is based on phony collusion story, which is already gone. Newt Gingrich says Robert Mueller is the tip of the deep state spear trying to bring down Trump. He doesn't trust him. Acting FBI Director McCabe is said to be the key behind Mueller and Comey's scheme against the President of the United States. Stay tuned on that. And Ken Starr of the Monica prosecution says he's seen no evidence yet that Trump obstructed justice, nothing that's been reported. Well, Jeff Sessions, it was the big follow-up to Comey, to answer to Comey's testimony last week. Jeff Sessions was on fire when he got on Capitol Hill this week, and he kicked off with this part of a statement. Number one.
I have never met with or had any conversation with any Russians or any foreign officials concerning any type of interference with any campaign or election in the United States. Further, I have no knowledge of any such conversations by anyone connected to the Trump campaign.
And he went on because he's really fired up about what they've been saying about him.
And the suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process, is an appalling and detestable lie.
The Democrats have said you recused yourself from the Russia investigation, so you shouldn't have had anything to do about firing Comey. But he's still the attorney general. His recusal was narrowly focused to the Russian investigation. So here's how he answered that criticism.
It is absurd, frankly, to suggest that a recusal from a single specific investigation would render the attorney general unable to manage the leadership of the various Department of Justice law enforcement components. And it was my best judgment that a fresh start at the FBI was the appropriate thing to do.
The appropriate thing to do. And well, what about your purported meeting with Russian Ambassador Kislyak during a diplomatic reception at the Mayflower Hotel? What about that? You didn't tell anybody about that, General Sessions. Tell us about it.
Well, I readily acknowledge these two meetings, and certainly not one thing happened that was improper.
And to the best of your memory, you had no conversation with Ambassador Kislyak at that meeting?
I don't recall it, Senator Warner. It's conceivable that occurred. I just don't remember it.
Well, we talked about the Mayflower. Tell us more about that.
You talked about the Mayflower Hotel, where the president gave his first foreign policy speech, and it's been covered in the press that the president was there, you were there, others were there. From your testimony, you said you don't remember whether Ambassador Kislyak was there, the Russian ambassador. Is that correct?
I did not remember that, but I understand he was there. So I don't doubt that he was. I believe that representations are correct. In fact, I recently saw a video of him coming into the room.
But you never remember having a conversation or a meeting with Ambassador Kislyak?
I do not.
And then Senator Wyden, Democrat, went after him tooth and nail over the question of him recusing himself, or not recusing himself, but invoking executive privilege, which the Attorney General explained to the Senate committee over and over again. He was not invoking executive privilege because the only person that can do that is the president. But he was reserving the president's right to invoke executive privilege and therefore couldn't answer certain questions because he wanted to protect and preserve the confidentiality of the executive branch to make its decisions and have his discussions freely without interference from the other co-equal branch of government. And so here's that exchange.
Am not stonewall. I am following the historic policies of the Department of Justice. You don't walk into any hearing or committee meeting and reveal confidential communications with the President of the United States, who's entitled to receive confidential communications in your best judgment about a host of issues, and have to be accused of stonewalling for not answering them. So I would push back on that. Secondly, Mr. Comey, perhaps he didn't know, but I basically recused myself the first day I got into the office because I never accessed files. I never learned the names of investigators. I never met with them. I never asked for any documentation. The documentation, what little I received, was mostly already in the media and was presented by the senior ethics, public responsibility, professional responsibility attorney in the department. And I made a honest and proper decision to recuse myself, as I told Senator Feinstein and the members of the committee I would do when they confirmed me.
So that was a lengthy answer to that. But the other issue, of course, well, Tom Cotton brought this up, and this really pushed it down. He said, well, the only crimes we've seen so far are the leaks of confidential government information. We haven't seen any other evidence of crimes. Let's hear about that.
Let's turn to the potential crimes that we know have happened. Leaks of certain information. Here's a short list of what I have. The contents of alleged transcripts of alleged conversations between Mr. Flynn and Mr. Kislyak. President Trump's phone calls with Australian and Mexican leaders. The content of Mr. Trump's meetings with the Russian foreign minister and the ambassador. The leak of the Manchester bombing suspect's identity and crime scene photos. And last week, within 20 minutes of this committee meeting in a classified setting with Jim Comey, the leak of what the basis of Mr. Comey's innuendo was.
So there you have it, the only leaks. But then then Sessions talked about what is going to happen as a consequence of these leaks. And this is very telling, folks.
We have had one successful case very recently in Georgia. That person has been denied bail, I believe, and is being held in custody. But some of these leaks, as you well know, are extraordinarily damaging to the United States security. And we have got to restore a regular order principle. We cannot have persons in our intelligence agencies, our investigative agencies, or in Congress leaking sensitive matters on staff. So this is, I'm afraid, will result in, is already resulting in investigations. And I'm fear that some people may find that they wish they hadn't leaked.
I wish they hadn't leaked.
Just a reminder of something I had said in the opening remarks, a quote of Pat Buchanan. The objective of this city to bring down President Trump via a deep state media coup is no secret, and few deny it.
Absolutely. So now we have more from Roger Stone. You're going to want to hear him. And the remarks he made last Friday in Lake Mary, he has some very telling things to say about what should happen and what might happen. Mess when Trump Talk Live returns.
Your voice can be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033. Don't touch that dial. More Trump Talk Live is moments away, where we the people have the right voice.
The summer is hot, so we're cooling down in New Smyrna Beach with the Sunday 5K Beach Fun Run. That's Sunday as in ice cream Sunday at the Flagler Avenue Beach Approach. Come out Sunday, June 25th with registration at 7 a.m. and race start at 8 a.m. for a 5K far crazier than any other with a free make your own Sunday bar after the race. That's right, we're having ice cream for breakfast. This chip-timed race also offers multiple age and gender medals, free runner t-shirts, and your first drink at the bar is on us. Don't feel guilty about the ice cream because we're working out before most even get out of bed on Saturday, June 25th. For race details and pre-registration, text Sunday as in ice cream Sunday to 40691. Text rates apply. For more event details, go to nsbfla.com. Sponsored by Riverside Clinical Research, New Smyrna Beach Visitor Center, and Flagler Tavern. Brought to you by the Southern Stone Event Group and WNDB.
Be heard loud and clear right here on Trump Talk Live. Our local number is 239-0033. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the USA at 800-927-0033.
Welcome back, Trumpubblicans. Well, we had word from John Solomon and Sarah Carter, our modern-day Woodward Bernstein. Circa News. That's at circa.com in case you're looking for the website. It's a very good website. They're real investigative reporters. John Solomon used to be with the AP, but he was one that actually played it straight at the AP. So he's no longer
No wonder he's not.
he's no longer there. Well, ex-FBI Director James Comey had a second frosty exchange with Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Comey has privately told members of Congress, that was in hearings behind closed doors, this is another leak, that he had a frosty exchange with Loretta Lynch last year when he confronted her about a possible political interference with the Hillary Clinton email investigation after showing Lynch a sensitive document she was unaware of that the FBI possessed. And all he got from her was a steely, silent stare. And in so many words, she, after that, said, "Are we done here?" Pretty much in so many words without saying a word, that's not going to go anywhere. So she spiked the case. And, of course, we saw what he did on July 5th at his news conference. So what does Roger Stone say about this? What we should really be investigating here instead of Donald Trump? Cut one.
Panel a grand jury, and let's find out what Susan Rice was doing using American intelligence surveillance for political reasons. And while we're at it, let's find out what the NSA was doing, spying unconstitutionally on hundreds of thousands and perhaps millions of Americans. Let me put it another way. It's time to send a subpoena to Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett, and yes, Barack Obama himself. What did he know and when did he know it? No person is above the law. He can go to the grand jury and talk about what his people did. It is a violation far greater than Watergate.
Far greater than Watergate. And the Obama abuses, he continues on about those abuses from Obama's administration.
Break-in by private parties for a political purpose, and a number of men went to jail. Well, I say Valerie Jarrett and Susan Rice and Barack Obama can go to jail too. It is proven that they knew in advance about illegal wiretapping and spying on Americans.
Now, back to Comey and Loretta Lynch. He had some remarks about that. Comey did nothing to stop Loretta Lynch from obstruction of justice in the Hillary email probe after getting a memo that said Lynch was going to spike the investigation. And so let's talk about those memos.
He wants to talk about memos. How about this? Washington Post reported almost 2 weeks ago that Mr. Comey made the decision to give Hillary Clinton a pass in the email investigation. A memo which had been intercepted by the FBI that was allegedly between Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General for Obama, and someone in the Clinton campaign, in which she told them, "Don't worry about the email investigation. We're not going to let it get very far." Mr. Comey became aware of what he believed was an obstruction of justice. And rather than, as an officer of the court reported, he facilitated the obstruction.
Yeah, in spite of the fact the memo turned out perhaps not to be valid, he operated as if it were right, it were correct. So it doesn't matter whether the memo was real or not. He operated on the assumption that he was engaging in an obstruction of justice. Here's more.
We now know that the memo on which he made the decision turns out to be a forgery. But I don't think that matters. He believed it to be true, therefore he suborned obstruction in the Hillary Clinton email matter. By the way, it would explain his statement that day where he excoriated her over all the laws she had broken, and then announced at the end she wouldn't be prosecuted, when he falsely said a conviction could not be won. Frankly, a first-year, out of law school first-year attorney could have won that conviction. It was open and shut. She's guilty.
Pretty open and shut case. And here's the slammer. Here's what slams it with an exclamation point.
After Watergate, as they told us over and over again, no person is above the law. No person's above the law. What about Bill and Hillary and their bratty, foul-mouthed, greedy, self-centered, entitled daughter, Chelsea? Are they above the law? Because the Clinton Foundation is not a charity. It's a slush fund for grifters, and it was the vehicle for the facilitation of multi-million-dollar bribes. You said it. Lock them up.
I guess that makes it pretty clear. Now, Dianne Feinstein, no Republican there, senior senator from California and the ranking Democrat on a lot of these committees, she remarkably thinks that we ought to look into what Loretta Lynch was doing with regard to Clinton.
At one point, the Attorney General had directed me not to call it an investigation, but instead to call it a matter, which confused me and concerned me. But that was one of the bricks in the load that led me to conclude I have to step away from the department if we're to close this case credibly.
Comey said that Lynch request gave him a queasy feeling. He felt it clearly that Loretta Lynch was giving cover to the Clinton campaign. Was she?
I can't answer that. I would have a queasy feeling too, though, to be candid with you. I think we need to know more about that. And there's only one way to know about it, and that's to have the Judiciary Committee take a look at that.
Whoa, you get Dianne Feinstein saying that. That's pretty good.
That's pretty damning. Now, FBI, this is another leak. FBI agents say Comey stood in the way of the Clinton email investigation. I dare say that in spite of what Comey has said about the morale in the FBI, there are a good number of hardworking agents and dedicated agents in the FBI that didn't like the way he was pushing things around and manipulating evidence. I don't think so.
Vic, Americans tend to think of politics as like an argument, something that you argue and then you decide and then everybody goes home. But a lot of nations around the world know that politics is warfare by other means. And I think what's happening here to the Democrats is they have painted themselves into a corner because they've played for 8 months now this Russian nonsense. There's nothing there. There's going to be nothing there. And at some point, it ends because even Mueller, the special counsel, is going to find there's nothing. And at some point, it ends. What happens to the Democrat Party at that point? What happens to the media at that point?
Well, what happens when you play Russian roulette and you get down, get down last to the last chamber in the turn?
Well, here's what I think is going to happen here. The going forward, only the media, the usual urban demographic groups, the campus snowflakes, the hardcore Marxists, PACs, and other groups that are anti-American, CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, it's a notorious Islamic supremacist group, pretends it's a civil rights organization. Black Lives Matter, which are George Soros-funded domestic terrorists, they masquerade as a civil rights group. La Raza, radical pro-illegal immigration group that preaches violent resistance to our laws. That's the Democrat base.
Yeah.
On the other hand, President Trump's 2016 base is still here. In fact, it's growing because many who weren't sure in 2016 have heard enough.
They're seeing job opportunities.
And everything's getting better on the economic front. The president's been abused over these last 6 months. Americans have the final say. And our first chance to vote, folks, is November 6th, 2018. That is 508 days away. Everyone, go put a countdown clock on your phone.
Exactly. Now, after the Comey testimony, they wanted to know I think he was with the president of Romania. So they wanted to ask the president, well, will you take the oath? Will you go under oath? And of course, it's worth reminding everybody that Hillary Clinton was never put under oath, even when she talked to the FBI. Why would the FBI not put you under oath when you talk to them? But they asked President Trump in Vindication Cut 3, would you go under oath?
He did say under oath that you told him to let the Flynn, you said you hoped the Flynn investigation, you could
I didn't say that.
So he lied about that.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, I will tell you, I didn't say that.
And did he ask you to pledge his
And there'd be
loyalty?
nothing wrong if I did say it, according to everybody that I've read today, but I did not say that.
And did he ask for a pledge of loyalty from you? That's another thing he said.
No, he did not.
So he said those things under oath. Would you be willing to speak under oath to give your version of
100%.
And what about the tapes, Mr. President? What about the tapes? What are you going to tell us about the tapes?
I hardly know the man. I'm not going to say, I want you to pledge allegiance. Who would do that? Who would ask a man to pledge allegiance under oath? I mean, think of it. I hardly know the man. It doesn't make sense. No, I didn't say that, and I didn't say the other.
So if Robert Mueller wanted to speak with you about that,
I would be glad to
talk
tell him exactly what I just told you, Joe.
And you seem to be hinting that there are conversations.
I'm not hinting anything. I'll tell you about it over a very short period of time. Okay. Okay. Do you have a question here?
When will you tell us about the
Over a
recording?
fairly short period of time.
Are there tapes, sir?
Oh, you're going to be very disappointed when you hear the answer. Don't worry.
Oh, he just has them. You know, they're just dangling. You know, and the other thing is, and we're going to give you a moment to wrap up, but we have Judge Janine Pirro, you know, coming October 8th to the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach. Go online to the Volusia County Republicans.org to get your tickets. They're going to go fast because Judge Janine is a big draw, and she's going to be lambasting those loony Democrats. And we want to hear a word or two from her. Let's just, you know, she talked in cut number 2 about the 6'8" tower of mush playing the victim. Let's listen.
He arrives all indignant before a Senate Intelligence Committee, calling the President of the United States a liar, saying he's the victim. He's been defamed. The President said the FBI was poorly run. Imagine. Were your feelings hurt, Jim? As if we didn't already know the FBI was in disarray after your repeated debacles with Hillary Clinton in the run-up to the presidential election. Poor Jim. You sound like a 2-year-old. Grow up. On second thought, don't. You're tall enough.
Well, he cut himself kind of short in that testimony. You know, here's another piece of advice for J. Edgar Comey in cut number 6.
You're the director of the FBI acting like J. Edgar Hoover, surreptitiously leaking negative information about the president. Doesn't that send a message to the FBI that, hey, it's okay now to leak? Times article saying members of Trump's campaign had repeated contact with senior Russian intelligence officials to proliferate in spite of the fact you knew it wasn't true. To that lie, Jim, but you refused, allowing the country to suffer a trauma hyped to Watergate proportions.
Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We encourage you to watch this again. YouTube will be on there on the archives and on our podcast, YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play. Live.
Feeling stuck in a state of compensation stagnation? You know, another year with no raise. Then let State Farm agent Sonia Mori in DeLand